All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. I love Fridays. I mean, I don't work a normal job, but I absolutely love Fridays. All right. Brand new episode, FanAddicts MMA Show. I am your host, Erica Lewis. I am joined by my co-hosts, David Wolf and Justin Cohey. What's going on, fellas? How's it going?
What's good, Erica?
It's hot.
It is. It's hot as balls outside. Like, I went outside for 2 seconds and I thought I died. Like, I actually thought that at some point I had died and then risen from the ashes like a phoenix. It was
How hot are balls?
I mean, I don't have balls, but I've heard.
You don't know, Dave?
I've heard that they're very warm. Don't they have to be kept?
It can get a little sweaty, but I don't know if warm is the right word.
Oh.
Why do you sweat, though?
I mean.
But my forehead could sweat, and it's not necessarily hot. It's not forehead hot outside.
From now on, things will be referred to as forehead hot. You're like, damn, son, that is forehead hot right there.
Damn, I've got a fever up in here. There's only one prescription: more cowbell.
That's right. You know what? I should get one. You know they sell them at Best Buy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I actually say both balls hot and balls cold for some reason, because Sam pointed it out. I was like, it's balls cold. She's like, which is it, hot or cold?
You know, I would think polar bear balls would be really cold. Are we really having an entire conversation
there you go.
About balls?
So, because we're not specifying human balls, so it could just be switching species.
We could
it's
be.
Balls hot with one species and balls cold with another.
I'm trying to think what species. Like, we got to think of some, like, it would have to be like African elephant balls hot. I mean, I think that's an appropriate description. We really did just spend like the last 2.5 minutes talking about testicles. I mean,
losing whatever listenership we had.
It's all good.
For those that are left, we'll be discussing S&M, Mighty Mike,
Magic Mike.
Magic Mike.
I cannot wait to see. It's surprisingly enough, it's getting really good reviews right now.
That's surprising. It's Steven Soderbergh. It's going to be a great movie.
It's that's getting good reviews, and so is Ted, the movie with the teddy bear. Ted's
getting some mixed reviews.
It's getting on Rotten Tomatoes. It's fresh. So, I usually go by Rotten Tomatoes for all of my reviews.
I'm good IGN, but I'm apprehensive about this one.
I check out my movie reviews on IGN, and they gave it an 8 out of 10. So they said thus far it's the
best. And IGN, they tend to be kind of assholes. So, I mean, if they're willing to give something a decent review, I don't know. I think it's worth it. I mean, if we could get the movie like right now on DVD, you can't tell me you wouldn't watch it with me.
Oh, I check it out. It's on my queue already.
Nice.
So is Magic Mike, and what I will go to the theater to see eventually is Dark Knight Rises. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing that midnight show.
Yeah.
Suddenly we turned into a pop culture podcast. I apologize for that. I mean, there's not really a whole lot in MMA right now, so deal with it. All right. So we're live right now, FanAddicts MMA Show. You can follow us on Twitter at FanAddicts MMA or at Fight Fans Radio. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Fight Fans Radio, or you can cough all over the phone. That is also appropriate. What else? I mean, we got a bunch of stuff. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher Radio. We are actually, so this is funny, and maybe I should or should not be sharing this on air, but I thought it was kind of funny. We are still making the transition to Shoutcast. We may still stay on Ustream, at least for being able to broadcast live video. But we are going to make the switch to Shoutcast, which gives us a lot more options. And I was talking to somebody from Stitcher Radio, and apparently you can broadcast live through that as well. So I was like, well, how do we broadcast live through that? And she says, well, if you have a Shoutcast account, we can just do that. But apparently when you do that, it's not just that we're broadcasting the individual shows live. We are live 24 hours a day. So we can actually have like an entire, just repeat all of our shows for 24 hours and then just have new episodes. I would think that's absolutely insane. I think I want to do it though. I don't know. It's craziness. Maybe just have like a 24-hour marathon to start it off with. But I'm saying we could have all kinds of stupid shows. It'd be like
Could we do like a best of show and like do like a compilation of like us talking about balls and?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think actually the compilation of us talking about balls, we might have to separate into two separate episodes because we talk about them so much on the show, which is funny.
That and Brandon Vera.
That and Brandon Vera. We do talk about Brandon Vera quite a bit. I'm actually excited about his fight with Shogun. I think that's going to be an actually decent fight. Whether he wins or loses, I think that stylistically on paper it matches up. We don't have to worry about Brandon Vera getting out wrestled by Shogun. I just don't think that's going to happen.
No.
And we'll get to see Brandon Vera actually be forced to use what I think is his strongest game, and that's his stand-up, his Muay Thai. So I'm not saying he's going to win, but I think it'll be a much
Very
better.
possible.
I think it's much more possible than people think.
He's going to win.
And it is possible. I mean, Shogun, he's looked okay, but he hasn't looked fantastic in quite a while. His knockout of Lyoto Machida, I thought he looked okay. I mean,
he looked pretty damn good for the few minutes that fight lasted.
Yeah, I mean, he looked okay.
Yeah, like I mean, even like I think what Eric is alluding to is that like even in his knockout one, specifically the one over Forrest Griffin most recently, he doesn't have that step anymore because
No.
I mean.
Oh, for sure, the Forrest one. I thought you was referring to Machida.
I mean, I did.
Well,
I mean, even in that, I
it
thought
alluded
he
to that
was.
as well. I think.
Yeah, I just didn't think he was. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being picky. Maybe I'm just being your elitist MMA fan, which is more than likely true. But I don't know. I really. I don't know. All right, let's move on. If you want to call into the show, we'll probably be BSing for most of the show today. But
What we usually do, or what I always do.
Well, yeah. David is revealing his secrets. Don't reveal your.
I just bullshit my way through everything. Worked for 38 years, mostly.
No. Justin, I see you tagging somebody. Tell them to go to the Facebook page, natfightfansradio.com, because the website is not up.
I'll delete that.
Real time here. Should we start with UFC on FX?
Yeah, we might as well. Hold on, let me give the phone number. The phone number is 410-988-6525. Feel free to call in, bullshit with us, give us your thoughts on last week's fights.
Curse us out.
Tell us what you think about balls. Apparently, there's an entire discussion that can be had.
A temperature-related question. Not balls in general. We don't want to get out of bounds.
No,
here, but we'd like to keep on topic.
No. And we're trying to keep it scientific as well.
Yeah, this is a scientific survey.
If you have a thermometer, better.
We've got issues. Actually,
I have issues.
Before we start talking about UFC on FX4 and UFC 147, just real quick, I want to make an announcement. And the guys here are aware of that. We have actually partnered with Fenichel's Fantasy Fight League, which is, like the name says, MMA Fantasy Fight League. We'll be giving away free entries to their fight league, and I think it's pretty amazing. The grand prize at the end of the season is done in a seasonal format. Their new season starts with UFC 148, which is next week. So get your entries in. It's not that expensive. It's $21 and some change. But the prize is totally worth it. If you come out in first place at the end of the season, you get 2 tickets to a UFC event, and that includes airfare and hotel. You really can't beat that at all. I think that's absolutely amazing.
Ew.
But the first rule of Fight League is
you don't talk about Fight League.
We don't talk about Fight League? Is that what we're doing?
That's the first rule.
Well, actually, I think the guys at Fight League would probably really like us to talk more about them.
Oh, that's true. That's very true.
So it's probably the opposite. We should talk about it often.
We should talk about Fight League. I think it's an amazing offer, and we're really happy to have the partnership. So we'll have that. It'll start for us next week when we do our predictions for the main card of UFC 148, which is amazing. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about last week's fights real quick, and that would be UFC. Let's start with UFC on FX4. I gotta say, guys, and I think probably knowing you guys, you were probably along the same lines as me. I was disappointed. I was not very impressed with the card at all. On paper, it sounded like it was going to be better than UFC 147. Maybe that was, smoke and mirrors. But I just didn't think it was that great of a card. The main card was just not that good. The preliminary fights were good, but that's only if you had
I thought the main card was all right till the main event.
I mean, I thought it was okay.
It was nothing great, but it was okay.
I mean,
it's a passable, free fight card. It wasn't the most. I didn't get to see the Sam Stout-Spencer Fisher fight or the main event, which, from what I'm hearing, I didn't miss much of that.
No,
fight.
you did not. You need to thank your lucky stars about that one, son.
The highlight of the evening for me was the Steven Siler Joey Gambino fight. That was just crazy.
Didn't see that.
You don't have Fuel TV.
I don't, and it has come out that fewer people have Fuel TV now than when UFC. But that's a little misleading because I think apparently it's based on people dropping cable,
which is
and not losing homes.
Yeah, that's something the UFC really hasn't. You can obviously order pay-per-views online, and they do have things through Xbox Live and Roku. They have a station on Roku where you can watch stuff through the internet over your television. But that's where a lot of people are moving nowadays. I'm even thinking about dropping cable, that's saying a lot because Erica likes TV. And she likes it so much she talks about herself in the third person. And
just like Bob Dole.
Like Bob Dole.
Remember Bob Dole when he was running for president?
Yes.
Bob Dole do this, Bob Dole do this.
Bob Dole's peanut butter.
And then he fell, and that was it.
All right, well let's start at the let's just talk about highlights from the main card because really
we're done.
I didn't think I did think the Swanson Pearson fight was really good. That was
good, but I didn't like the ending, of course.
No, of course not. And I think that kind of shocked a lot of people. It seemed like Pearson, at least from what I could see, Pearson seemed to be.
Cub Swanson's never looked good before this, though. Really,
I mean, when he knocked out George Roop, that looked pretty good. But I mean, he was knocking out George Roop. So I don't know.
I mean, he could look great against people that live in his neighborhood. I'm sure.
Right.
Children. Invalids and elderly.
I will also say that I thought the win, Dan Miller's win over Ricardo Funch, it was his debut at 170.
Is that also full?
What?
Full TV? Was that on Full TV?
No, that was on Facebook.
Oh, okay. I could have seen that, but didn't.
He won a third round guillotine choke on Ricardo Funch. Is it Funch or Funk? Funch. I'm gonna say Funch because I don't want to call him Ricardo Funk.
Yeah, it's Funch, I believe.
Neither way is wonderful.
Yeah, Dan Miller getting this win is amazing. If you don't know his story, his kid is, and I'm not even going to be able to speak intelligently about this because I don't know all the scientific names and whatnot. I'm actually going to look it up, but he's got a foundation.
Balls hot. He was balls hot, I think, scientifically.
Scientifically, balls hot is. Let me see.
Was the answer.
Is always the answer. Actually, that might be the answer for everything for us. Their son Daniel Jr. is struggling with a lot of health problems. I don't see where they specify what it is, but I do know that Dan Miller started a foundation for it to help raise awareness for whatever it is his kid's got. So he lost his first.
It's either a kidney or a liver disorder. I think it's kidney, and I think he actually needs a transplant. I think that's the issue.
Well, and then he lost his first child in May 2009, and he has struggled as a fighter, which is it shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, with all this, most of us would struggle with this. I mean, he's in his last, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In his last 8 fights, he is 3 and 5. Sorry, it's 3 and 5. So he did manage to get a win over John Salter at UFC 118 and a win over Joe Dorkson. Is it Dorkerson? Dorkson?
I think it's Dirksen.
Dirksen. I'm gonna call him Dorkson. Joe Dorkson at UFC 124.
Look at that level of competition in his losses, though. Chael Sonnen, Damian Maia, Michael Bisping, Mark Horton, Husimir Paul Harris. I mean, he's fighting the murderer's row right there.
Yeah. So, but Ricardo Fonch definitely falls under the category of, Dirksen and Salter. So, I wonder what the next step is going to be for Miller, what the UFC is going to be able to do with him. I mean, do you give him what is a good step up in competition from that? And that is an amazing question. And, our resident matchmaker, and we truly believe that Joe Silva has his phone tapped. Hi, Joe. How's it going? Wrote an article. It's called Cohee's Corner. You can find it on our Tumblr. It's fightfansradio.tumblr.com. Check it out. But share with us what you thought about matchmaking for Dan Miller moving forward.
Yeah, I didn't really think about the Dan Miller fight too hard, just because I kind of stuck to some fights that were a little more exciting and had a little more meaning to them. Just looking at the card right now, I mean, you've got guys like Matt Brown walked away with a win. I think that's probably a pretty good matchup for Dan Miller. Seth Baczynski won recently as well, and he's been looking pretty good as of late. He's not. I really like the idea of him fighting Seth Baczynski, because I think Baczynski's the kind of guy who's kind of going under the radar right now. Underrated striker, really underrated grappler, and I kind of think that's the same kind of thing we're seeing with Dan Miller. So I think both those guys will put on a really good fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I totally expect that I think that's a reasonable expectation, and I think that's a good step up in competition. I don't think it's too far reaching for him, but if he gets the win, he's at least getting a win over somebody who is also coming off of a win, which naturally kind of moves him up a little bit in the ladder at 170. David, do you think that Dan Miller, even though you didn't see the fight, just what you know of him as a fighter, do you think at 170 he'll be able to make any kind of dent based off the skills that he has, or do you think he's kind of fated to just be kind of in the middle, good enough?
I see him more as a journeyman.
That makes me sad.
Kind of like you beat him and you could be ready for title contention. Not necessarily at title contention, but sort of a gatekeeper.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's okay for guys to realize that that's their role. Not everybody's going to win the title. This isn't.
That's so true. A lot of people say I can't be champion. I don't even want to do it. But bottom line is, very few people are going to be UFC champion.
Yeah, that is the God's honest truth right there, and that's for damn sure. That makes me a little sad. I'm a little depressed after that one.
But I will be UFC champion one day.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't let my age fool you. I'm working hard.
So, I thought Matt Brown was a good matchup there, Justin. I think Chris Camozzi looked really good in his fight against Nick Catone. Steven Siler looked amazing against Joey Gambino. And I'm sad that you missed that fight, David. Steven Siler came out, and, I remember him being that dorky-looking kid from The Ultimate Fighter.
He fought a guy named Gambino?
Yes.
Is he still alive?
Not only did he fight a guy named Gambino, his name is Joey Gambino.
And his opponent won and is still among the living. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I'm telling you, Joey Gambino is...
The mafia is done in this country.
Oh.
Joey Gambino...
Years ago, that would have been it.
Gambino also got out of Mount.
And if he showed up, he would have taken a dive. That's the way it would have worked.
Yes,
you don't fight a Joey Gambino.
That's what I thought. I thought you just kind of you let them start the fight, and then you just kind of tap out politely.
Those days are over.
But yeah,
Gambino got out of mount just by doing a sit up. Siler was in full mount on him. Gambino was like, I'm just going to get out of this, and did a sit up and got out of mount. I mean, he got choked immediately after that, but it was just crazy. He was Seiler's on top of him. He's like, I don't feel like being a mount anymore. Just does a sit-up and pushes Seiler off.
I mean, the blood was all over the place. Steven Seiler opened up Gambino with, I believe it was a nasty knee, if I'm not mistaken. Was it a knee or an elbow? I think it was a knee. I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly certain it was a knee. And I mean, Gambino was leaking all over the damn place. It was a bloody fight. It was a good fight. It was a good performance from Seiler. The signs of a fighter that is making improvement is when they get in trouble and they're able to get themselves out of it using technique and skill, and knowledge of their own skill set, and not necessarily the fault of the other person. I thought that Seiler really showed growth in this fight, and I think the UFC was really pleased with him, and I expect to see him move on to a really interesting fight next. Did you have any thoughts on that particular fight, Justin?
No, I mean, he's kind of, the people he's fighting are it was kind of crazy. The first fight he had was against Cole Miller. I think he was expected to just be kind of fodder to Miller's debut at 145 and actually beat the crap out of him. So I think they were like, okay, well, let's put him in with another prospect type deal and see how he performs and pass that test with flying colors. So I think you just take the slow road with him. I don't know if you necessarily need to put him in with a named opponent right now.
Right.
That weight division is still in its infancy. So it's whoever you want to bring into the UFC, I think that's and Seiler's from the Ultimate Fighter, so doesn't have a ton of experience at this level. So I think if you continue to bring in newer guys for him or guys in similar situations as him, I think that's the right road to take.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's also a cop-out because I don't have a good answer.
I'm trying to think. Ramsey Najim, I thought he looked... I only thought that Najim only looked okay in his fight against C.J. Keith, and this was also on the preliminary card on Field TV. I didn't think he looked... He got the win in the first round, and it probably sounds funny for me to say that I didn't think he looked fantastic in that fight. He made a lot of mistakes in that fight against C.J. Keith. Although undefeated, it was his debut in the UFC, and I don't know. I thought Najim managed to get himself into a couple of sticky situations that he should have been able to avoid. But again, he falls under, I think, the same category as Steven Seiler. Still a growing fighter. They need to move him slow and let him develop before they really start throwing him in there with the big boys. Upset of the night, I'd have to say, is Ricardo Lamas defeating Hatsu Hayoki. Quite frankly, I scored the fight for Hatsu Hayoki 29-28. But
couldn't have been too impressive for the title contender.
No, and even if
another Japanese fighter goes up in smoke.
I mean, but what have you even had a chance to watch the fight, David? Did you watch it?
I have not seen the fight.
Justin, did you see the fight?
I did not. I was actually on the road while this fight was going on.
You guys are crazy, just crazy. I really did. I mean, if anybody out there,
was it on Fuel TV? How the hell was I supposed to see it?
You're still crazy. I mean, I don't think having Fuel TV has anything to do with your sanity, David. I still think you're
that's true. But this is completely irrelevant to it as well.
If you saw the fight, Ricardo Lamas versus Hatsu Hayoki, and you have an opinion on it, feel free to tweet it to me. At Fight Fans Radio or at FanAddicts MMA.
MMA on the reg is listening, so go ahead and give us your thoughts on that.
I love MMA on the reg. He is awesome.
He just tweeted me a pretty good. He thought he was thinking Rick Story versus Dan Miller, and I thought that's actually a pretty good fight as well.
I didn't think. So he just tweeted me. He said he thought Hayoki looked like shit. I think Hayoki looked like shit as well after the first round. Like the first round, I thought Hayoki was really good, but I just didn't think that Lamas did enough to win the fight. I think Lamas won the second round for sure, but I thought the third round, maybe it was a lot closer than I remember. I haven't had a chance to rewatch the fight, but I thought that Hayoki won that third round. Again, I probably have to see the fight again, but I don't know. Even though Lamas was on the bottom, I don't know. We always go back and forth about these things. I mean, if a fighter manages to take his opponent down, but he doesn't do a whole lot on the ground. But he still is controlling where the fight is taking place. So who gets, but the guy on the bottom is active. How do you score that? I mean, the guy at the
Depends on
bottom
how
is
active he
active.
is.
Yeah, he's active, but he has to be defensive. You can't. It's hard to be offensive in that position. I don't think it's possible to be in that position and necessarily be considered offensive. Can you? I mean,
From the bottom?
yeah. I mean, in jiu-jitsu you
Yeah,
can, but
yeah.
I don't know if in
You're going for
MMA.
arm bars, going for triangles, going for all that. I mean, you can do that in MMA as well. And I consider that offense. You see
I,
guys doing that all the time from
I,
their guard.
I do, but I would consider it an offensive move if he did it on purpose. If he pulled guard, and then pulled those submissions out, I would consider that offensive. But at the point where the guy is actually taking you down and you're using those maneuvers, I think they're defensive by nature because you didn't choose to be there. You're using these moves because of the position you ended up in. I mean, does that make
But
sense?
you're still. I understand what you're saying, but I mean, defensive is if he's trying to do stuff to you and you're defensive. I mean, you're really on the offense because an armbar can finish the fight, a triangle can finish the fight, and depending on how close you are and how well you're executing, I don't award much for a takedown in itself. I mean, yeah, you decided to take the fight to the ground, you put the fight there, but it depends on what you're doing. And if you're controlling the guy, it's one thing, but if he's going for arm bars and they're not just retarded looking, I'm going to give it to the guy on the bottom.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a tough call. Justin, you're awfully quiet during this. I mean, do you have an opinion on I mean, you have to give it. Once a guy takes you down, he is controlling where the fight is taking place. But does that take? How much weight does that have in a fight? I don't know. I mean, we always talk about this, don't we? In fights where a guy just got
Often.
takedowns and didn't really do a whole lot with it. Justin,
Justin, are you here?
Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize my phone was on mute.
oh, rude.
Son of a bitch.
Go ahead, Justin. What are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts? Come on.
I don't know. I agree with what both of you have to say about this. And again, we're probably beating a dead Alistair Overeem here.
I love it. Beating a dead Alistair Overeem.
But I don't know. I guess it depends on the situation. I mean, if you look at like the Demetrius Johnson Miguel Torres fight, a lot of people scored that fight for Torres because he was so active from the bottom. And I believe it was Jeff Kern's fight against Mizugaki. I actually thought Kern won that fight because he was so active
From the bottom, yeah.
But in some cases, there's being active off your back and being effective, and there's like someone like Ben Saunders who, when he's on his back, and it's just throwing every submission he can think of, and it's not really going to end up finishing the fight, and it actually ends up putting him in a more harmful position.
Right.
Then yeah, just because he's active, I don't necessarily think he's winning the fight.
I don't know. I mean, if anybody else thought that Hayoki won that fight, or if I'm just crazy, which is possible. Again, I've only seen the fight once, and you really should. I'm learning. The more that I work for Fimetric, the more I'm learning that you should not trust your first instincts when you watch a fight. You really shouldn't. You can't. It's hard. I think it's really hard for you to watch a fight and then say definitively afterwards, this fighter A won this fight. And I mean in controversial fights.
Close fight.
Yeah, in a close fight. You can't do that. It's impossible to do. There's so many factors that go into it. So many things that you miss, especially if you're looking at one particular fighter over another. Where there are certain techniques you can use when watching fights to kind of be able to gauge the fight from both fighters at the same time. I don't know. It's just, you really just can't do it. In fights where I was, positive, fighter A won the fight, and then I go back and I look at the fight again, and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? I don't understand. What was I thinking? And, maybe this is one of those situations. All right, so we did talk a little bit.
Dave was right when he was telling you that.
Dave was right.
What the hell?
I don't know. But I don't tell Dave that. I keep it.
No.
I write it on a piece of paper, and I put it in a hat.
It's like Sam.
I put it in a hat. I don't want to tell David that I think he's right. Brian Ebersol defeated T.J. Wahlberg, and what I thought was a fairly uneventful fight. Sam Stout defeated Spencer Fisher. If anything, the fight showed that neither one of these guys is ever going to be anything other than the guy that they bring on for exciting fights. And I thought it was an okay fight. It was
nothing great.
I was watching it at a bar, so it wasn't exciting enough to keep me from being engaged in what was going on in the bar. So, and then of course the main event. We have to talk about the main event. Gray Maynard defeating Clay Guida via split decision. Clay Guida is getting a lot of shit about his strategy for this fight, and this is the first time I've ever seen Clay Guida get defensive. I mean, he's actually been very defensive about the strategy he chose for this fight. First off, did all of you agree with the decision giving the fight to Gray Maynard?
I gave the.
Go ahead, Dave.
I gave the 5th round to Guida actually, but then I saw the fight stats and it looked like it should have gone to Maynard, but I did not watch the fight a second time.
Right.
And I gave the first 2 rounds to Guida, so my scorecard was for Guida, but I wasn't happy about it.
Justin, did you agree with the decision?
Yeah, I mean, at some point you've got to start. I mean, Guida was warned for it about running away and not engaging, but he was never actually deducted a point. And I think at some point he really deserved to have a point deducted. So in my mind, because I thought he should have had a point deducted, he definitely ended up down on the scorecards. It wasn't an impressive performance by either fighter, but I couldn't believe that was Clay Guida. It just didn't make sense.
Well, it was Greg Jackson's game plan. That's what they do. I mean, and that's why I don't understand.
I'm tired of hearing this. I'm sorry. I'm just tired of hearing this. It's just this blame that Team Jackson is getting thrown for. It's like, oh, all these guys do is back away in a point fight. I was like, that's not necessarily true. I mean, like, Jackson fighters finish a lot of their fights.
Well, but there's a game plan for each fight, and that was the plan for this fight. Now, by the 4th round, I think the idea was that they were going to try to tire Maynard out, but that wasn't happening, and Guida had to engage somewhat, and he still wasn't. I mean, I have nothing against like what Carlos Condit did in the Nick Diaz fight, where he's backtracking and counterpunching and connecting, but Guida wasn't doing anything but run backwards, and
right.
It was horrible. And I agree with you 100%. I was happy when he got warned in the 5th round, and I would not have had a problem had he had a point deducted at any point. I guess you have to give him a warning. So the warning probably should have come a lot earlier. And
yeah.
If he didn't change his ways, he would have lost a point by some point.
Yeah, I have to agree with you with that. By the 3rd round, it was kind of obvious what he was doing. He should have been warned before the 5th round. That seemed like, I am a fan in general of who's the ref for that fight?
Was it Dan Miragliotta?
Yes, it was Dan Miragliotta. Typically, I'm a fan of his, but I thought he waited way too long to give that warning.
Can we point out how the fans actually turned on Guida and started cheering for Maynard in the middle of this fight, which I've never really seen in a UFC fight. It's kind of like, sorry, Justin, the Bret Hart, Steve Austin double turn that took place at, I think it was WrestleMania 13 years ago, where both guys turned in the same match. Here you had a crowd that was solidly behind Guida at the beginning, and clearly in the 4th round they were behind Maynard. But I think the shift happened in the 3rd, and at the end Guida was just getting booed, and Maynard was getting cheered.
Which I thought was kind of funny. Anyway, they're in Jersey. Isn't that Maynard's stomping grounds?
Is it?
I don't
really?
know.
I don't.
Or is that
think
Guida's
so.
stomping grounds?
I don't think it's either one.
Oh, okay.
It's Miller's, the Millers, and Frankie Edgar.
Yeah.
I don't think either of those guys has roots in Jersey, but I could be wrong.
Roots. They got roots.
Roots.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
It was an awful fight. Except the 4th round got a little exciting when Gray just flipped out and let Clay hit him in the face, and then Maynard almost landed the guillotine and almost finished the fight, which would have been awesome.
I have to say, Maynard did himself a huge service in this fight. At the point where he stopped and he put his hands down and he let Guida just start plugging him in the face, and he mouthed, "All day, baby, all day." And I was like, okay.
That's what she said.
I really thought it was a good moment for Maynard to show some personality, to show, I think he's been accused quite often of being kind of a boring character,
kind of being gray.
Yeah, kind of being a little gray, and Gray showed that. MMA on the Reg wanted me to tell you, Dave, that he thought that was a great call by you on the crowd change. Oh yeah, he has a good point. He says, Guida is Italian, so that's probably why the crowd was really for him. And then Maynard is Edgar's enemy, and has a tramp.
Guida's pretty popular in general. Guida gets cheered when he fights for the most part.
Yeah, and
like he's just a popular dude. He was. This could serve to change that a little bit. We'll see if fans are forgiving. They'll be forgiving if he comes out and has an exciting fight.
Yeah.
But you know what I think is bullshit? Hearing from fans or others that Clay Guida was scared to engage with Gray Maynard. No, he was following the game plan. If Jackson told him go out there and get punched in the face repeatedly, he would have done that as well. I mean, Clay Guida is not a frightened fighter. No one in UFC is. That's the bottom line.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It was it was a curious gameplay. I mean, it made sense on paper. Like, I could see how
it wasn't working. They should have adjusted.
Yeah,
adjusted. I blame Jackson completely. He didn't adjust. He let him go out there and run. And
if it had been a 3-round fight, I think not being able to adjust would be acceptable. But in a 5-round fight,
he would have won a 3-rounder. He had those first 2 rounds on the scorecards as well. He would have won a 3-round fight.
No, I'm saying that it could be difficult to adjust your game plan in a 3-round fight. I can see that maybe that could be an excuse, but in a 5-round fight, you have more than enough time to gather your wits and kind of start changing the tides. And at no point did they even try to do that. So I think it was not a bad game plan on paper, but in execution, it wasn't working, and they should have changed up, and it just didn't happen. And Justin, let us know what you thought about matchups in the future for Gray Maynard, the winner, and for Clay Guida in his loss.
Well, with Guida, it's pretty easy. I think he's in kind of a similar situation as Jim Miller, where he's beating guys and looking impressive, but then when you put him in a situation where he could either be one fight away from a title contender's fight, or he's actually in a title eliminator, they both fall short. So I think both of them are probably looking to get back in there, impress the crowd, impress the UFC, be like, look, don't judge me on my last performance. This is how I can really fight. So I think those two together would just be super exciting. On top of with Maynard, it's a little more difficult. In my little article, I kind of went off on, started thinking, I was like, well, it'd be nice if Nate Diaz would fight Pettis, and then, like, Cerrone could fight Maynard, and then they could have, like, a little mini tournament kind of thing. But in the end, I think Donald Cerrone is a good matchup for Guida. You get to see how Guida deals with a much longer, versatile striker, and see how Cerrone's takedown defense, if it truly has improved that much, and if he does get taken down, how good he can do off the back.
Right. Terrence from Southeast is telling me that he actually thinks that Clay Guida should have been fired for that performance. And he points out how Dana White has always been critical of Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson gets a lot of shit. He and like any popular organization, they are absolutely crucified when they mess up, and then not a peep when they do well. So, Cub Swanson, also a Greg Jackson fighter, came out and beat Ross Pearson, but you didn't hear people commending Greg Jackson's camp for preparing their fighter for that fight. All you heard was them saying disparaging things about his camp and that Clay Guida strategy. So I don't know, man. It's we're a
fickle bunch.
Fickle animals, man, for reals.
Real assholes.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I've accepted that about my role as an MMA fan, that I'm just an absolute asshole. So,
I embrace it.
Yeah, I mean, I go to a bar and I'm like, that's called...
I wear my tap out gear. If they're standing, I'm like, go for a heel hook.
I'm like, it's pronounced guillotine, not guillotine. Thank you very much. Can I please have my import beer?
You should totally kick him in the face. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what he should do. Give up the takedown, you
dumbass. I love it. Get off the ground. Get off the ground.
I think he's trying.
What? What happened?
You know, when people are like, oh dude, why don't they stand up? And I was like, well, I think he's trying to get up, but I don't think the other guy wants to let him up.
Yeah. Oh God, we are such snobs. I love it. All right, let's talk about UFC 147. And really, there's not really a whole lot for us to talk about on this particular card. I think the only... it's worth mentioning that Fabricio Verdum destroyed Mike Russell like he should have.
What a surprise. That went exactly the way
it should have gone, and the way that everybody at least should have been expecting it to go. And I think that fight... has shown, even though Mike Russell was not any kind of real competition for Verdum, again, I say this so much on the show, when you're put up against inferior competition, you should be able to put him away rather quickly, and that's what he did. And I think Verdum is ready for a nice step up in competition in the UFC. I mean, he had Roy Nelson. I feel like Mike Russell was kind of a step down, even though Mike Russell was on a win streak. But what would you like to see next for Fabricio Verdum?
And if either one of you guys is in front of a computer right now, I'm in my car and I can't remember to save my life who
you're saying you said the winner of Travis Brown and Ben Rothwell.
Ben Rothwell. Yeah, I like that. God, I'm smart.
Erica, do you get the feeling someone else is actually making these matchups and sending them to Justin?
I think it's quite
sometimes possible. He reads them, sometimes he forgets them.
Yeah, it's awfully suspicious.
I'm kind of getting the feeling there's something suspicious about this whole thing.
No, it's because Erica and Gracie sent me a message being like, oh hey, we're getting a Cody's Corner this week, and this was like Tuesday or Wednesday. I completely forgot. And so by the time I got to work on it, it was like 10:30 at night, so I was like half asleep, and that's why the humor in it is really, really strange.
I love it. I think it's awesome. I think you should write more of them at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so that's why my memory's a little fuzzy. But I do remember that my pick for Russell was Pat Barry, just because I don't know what else the hell you do with either one of them.
No, and they're really. I feel like there are a lot of guys the UFC had invested some money into and poster space on, and they're not living up to that potential. And what do you do with them at this point? And Pat Barry's definitely one of those guys. So, I don't know. I guess it's a matchup worth making, but Mike Russell is just not an elite. He's not UFC material, in my opinion. Maybe he's like bottom of the rung heavyweight kind of material, but they didn't really know what to do with him because he was winning fights. So, I don't know. I thought that was weird. But let's talk about the main event. Just to let you guys know, it was my birthday weekend. I went out. I did not watch this fight. I did not think it was worth watching this card. I heard it wasn't bad. I heard some of the tough Brazil finale fights were okay. But Rich Franklin defeated Wanderlei Silva. I heard that fight had its moments. There is some argument, though, about the second round where Wanderlei Silva... The scoring of it. Yeah, right? Whether Wanderlei Silva should have got a 10-8 for that round against Rich Franklin. And I've heard arguments on both sides, the fact that he almost finished it, does that count as a 10-8? Or the fact that he was probably losing the first 4 minutes of the fight.
To me, the finish... Unless he was losing it drastically, almost finishing a fight gives you a 10-8 round.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I have two criteria: either complete domination of the entire 5 minutes, or almost finishing the fight, and not basically being dominated the previous. The rest. Even if the other guy is winning, that's still 10-8 to me.
Okay. So let me ask you, what would you consider a 10-7 round then?
10-7 in a 3-round fight, that almost takes the other guy completely out of it. But maybe the Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard first round in either of those fights might have been 10-7.
With 3 knockdowns in the round, like where you're constantly getting knocked down. Yeah, I could agree with that. What
about Lesnar Carwin?
That was close to 10-7,
yeah.
But Lesnar was never as close to out as Frankie Edgar was. Lesnar wasn't out. Lesnar was always in it. Frankie Edgar was basically out a few times.
Right.
Lesnar was getting his ass kicked and getting his ass kicked badly, but that was still pretty much 10-8 for me. I mean, when you're dealing with 3 or even 5-round fights, when you start deducting points, you really very quickly take the other fighter out of it.
Terrence from Southeast is saying he would like to see Gray Maynard fight Gilbert Melendez. I think you and everybody else, buddy, I would love to see that fight. Gray Maynard versus Gilbert Melendez for the Strikeforce title. But the problem is...
Only if Maynard goes to Strikeforce, which
the problem is that, anytime, even though it is a title, it's still Strikeforce. And if you fought for the UFC title twice, you don't want to take that step down to Strikeforce. So, although I think Gilbert Melendez would be an amazing fight, maybe it shouldn't be for the title. Maybe it should just be a 5-round super fight. Just F it. Just do it. I typically hate when champions fight and they don't put their title on.
But then what happens if Maynard wins? Then you have Gilbert Melendez, the champion, who's now lost to another guy. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why...
Gilbert Melendez looks all like right now anyway, because, a lot of people thought...
Thompson won that fight?
Yeah.
I thought Thompson won that fight, to be honest with you, but...
I thought it was a draw.
I scored it as a draw as well.
Whatever, haters. Okay, I can see a draw. Yeah. I can see a draw. Actually, a draw makes a lot of sense.
That first round was just like crazy close.
I think that... wow, crazy sauce over here. So whether Wanderlei Silva should have got a 10-8 in that second round.
Seemingly lost the rest of the fight.
Yeah, it's almost a moot point because, from what I understand, he just really wasn't able to. First off, that he burned himself out in that second round trying to finish the fight. So Rich Franklin is now saying he wants to give the 185 title track one more shot before he calls it quits. And I'm guessing, David, that you think that's a bad idea.
Well, I mean, what else is he really going to say or do? But I don't think he's ever going to be in line for another title shot in any division. And apparently he didn't look that great here. I mean, he should have finished Wanderlei Silva. Wanderlei's chinny. Lasted 5 rounds with Rich Franklin. I mean, as long as Anderson Silva's champion, Rich Franklin's never getting another title shot anyway. But I guess it's a theoretical possibility if Chael Sonnen were to defeat Anderson that Rich could be several fights. He's still several fights away. I mean, what's a win over Wanderlei give you at this point? He still has to probably win 3 fights before getting a title shot.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
That fight wasn't even at 185 either.
Say that again?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Wanderlei Franklin fight from last weekend was at 190?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess you kind of consider that a middleweight fight, but I don't know.
These weird catchweight fights always kind of F things up, don't they?
Yep. They certainly do.
Okay, so what do you do with Wanderlei at this point? He does not want to retire. There are still people saying they want to see the Vitor Belfort fight, and I don't think that
that's gonna be bad news for Wanderlei.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it, really, to have it. But
not if you care about this man's health.
Yeah,
this Vitor is not gonna pull a Rich Franklin lasting 3 or 5 rounds with this guy. It's gonna be a knockout.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is a situation we talked about last weekend. Feel fairly strongly about it, so that this should be a forced retirement situation. It was nice that he had his little swan song win against Kung Leg, but, I mean, like we said, the guy can't take a punch anymore. When he does get knocked out, it's violent and he's out for an extended period of time. And to think about putting him in there with someone like Vitor Belfort, it's just insane. You know, and plus Belfort doesn't even want to fight anymore because he's more concerned about, you know, moving up, and he doesn't want to fight a guy coming off a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. If Patrick Cote loses to Kungle, maybe you have him fight Wanderlei. But other than that, I would just get the guy out of the cage.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. So real quick, let's talk about UFC 148, which is coming up. We're not, you know, obviously not doing a prediction for that, but they did have a press conference this week, and apparently, Anderson Silva is
pissed.
Is pissed.
He's not playing.
And I feel like this is deja vu because we talked about this with the first matchup. But did Chael Sonnen dig himself a hole here, talking all this shit about Anderson Silva? And I genuinely think Anderson Silva is unhappy about this. He's been very vocal that he doesn't think that Chael Sonnen deserves a chance. He doesn't think he deserves to be in the UFC. You know, for various reasons, probably, you know, failing his drug test after their first fight and the convictions and all the weird bullshit that he pulls. So, you know, what do you think about Silva's reaction to Chael Sonnen this go round?
It's a weird thing. I mean, it could be one of two things. It could be meaning that he's crazy motivated, he's healthy, he's not worried about taking Chael Sonnen lightly, like I think he might have done before. You know, he could just be really generally pissed off and ready to just beat the crap out of Sonnen. Or Sonnen could be completely pleased with this reaction because maybe he thinks that he's really gotten into Silva's head at this point. You know, the first time around when they were hyping the fight, Sonnen was, you know, on a nice little win streak, but no one really knew who he was. But then all of a sudden he kind of comes out with this persona, and people are just starting to pay attention to him. But at the same time, Anderson Silva's like, you know, this guy's just talking. And then the guy comes out there and backs up the talk and beats his ass for 4.5 rounds. You know, and now he's continuing to talk, and maybe Anderson's just, like, finally just had enough, and something's just lodged in his brain.
Yeah. I think that I genuinely, we still have not seen Like Water, but David has seen it. And David, you mentioned that in there they kind of addressed the injured ribs rumor from the first fight. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's more than addressed. You could just see that Anderson gets very badly injured maybe a week before the fight, and you know you hear him talking about it, and you could see him having a lot of trouble with the ribs. So that injury was not something thought of after the fight as an excuse. It was true, and who knows? Chael may have been injured going into that fight as well. Fighters are always hurt going into fights.
Yeah,
and this fight could go the same way again. Anderson Silva's weakness is a wrestler. It's always been a wrestler, and you know Chael's weakness has always been a triangle. So the fight can go the exact same way, perhaps. But we'll see.
It's always been a triangle. That is the truth. I don't know. You know, I think this is an exciting fight. They're talking about ratings. Of course, Dana White, being the promoter that he is talking UFC 100 type numbers.
Yeah, I don't think he's serious about that. There's no fucking way.
No, I don't think so. Well, and then here,
he'll be lucky if it does $1 million. $1 million would be great. I don't even think it's going to do $1 million. It might. It's not doing $1.7 million.
Here, 8 or 9.
8 or 9 is what I'm thinking.
Here's the bullshit on top of all of that. They are doing a prime time for this, but it's going to be on full TV.
I saw.
So
it was supposed to be on Fox, and I don't know what the hell happened. But that's significant because if they would have gotten on Fox with that, I would have been confident that would do over $1 million.
What is going on with this Fox deal with the UFC? It's not.
You couldn't get this prime time on FX. It's not even a prime time. You couldn't get this preview on FX.
Yeah.
One of these nights. I don't get it. No one sees it on Fuel. It's a problem at this point.
FX got the movies though.
What?
FX got the movies though. They got too many movies to show.
They do have the movies.
So that they couldn't get an hour sometime during the week for a UFC preview. I mean, I understand that this is a pay-per-view and it's not a Fox special, but I thought both brands were supposed to be helping each other.
Yeah, and it does not seem like this does not seem like a relationship that is what I would call equally yoked. It does not seem
airing a preview for a potential blockbuster pay-per-view on Fuel is such backwards thinking. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for the meetings where this gets decided. Okay, let's cost ourselves maybe 200,000 buys. Let's air this on Fuel.
Yeah, this is really turned into quite the ugly situation all the way around.
Such an opportunity here. Anderson's trash talk was great. Yeah, I know Justin's not huge on trash talking MMA, but this was Chael Sonnen. This is Anderson Silva doing Chael Sonnen, doing superstar Billy Graham. I'm going to break every bone in his body. This is going to reframe the sport. He's going to need plastic surgery after this fight's through.
I like how he kept calling him. I did like how he called him a criminal several times.
Yeah, he called him a criminal, and then Chael said, "What did he say?" He made a reference to medium rare or something because he said that after the fight, Anderson's wife's going to be cooking him a steak. That's what's pissing Anderson off. It's like, don't talk about my family, motherfucker. But it's great.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's good material.
If you want to see a good preview for it, you got to see Like Water. Watch Like Water before this fight because that was just a great documentary.
If you guys need to see the press conference, just check out Tommy Toehold. He sums it up nicely.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Tommy did an amazing job. I think on this week's past episode where he definitely pokes fun at the Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen beef going back and forth. Tommy Toehold, of course, always has
the Anderson Silva voice cracks me up.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty damn funny. I mean, they just get better and better. Tommy is.
He said, "Mom."
It's just some really funny
shit. Clay Guida's running away the entire time. Clay, Clay, sit down. Okay.
Oh, it is. It's really good. You got to check it out. Our buddy, youtube.com/Tommy Toehold. I know there are some people out there whose names I will not mention. Erica's not picking beefs with anybody in the MMA community. I mean, I might pick a couple of beefs, but this one
There are people what? Are you going to say people who don't like it?
No, that claim that they were the ones that quote-unquote discovered Tommy. I seem to recall us being one of the first ones to ever have him.
I'm not taking any credit. Erica turned me on to Tommy Toehold way. I think the first I heard of him is when you sent us an email saying he was going to be a guest host.
Yeah,
but it was way before anyone
was all up on his shit.
Yeah, for sure. That was so early. I had never heard of it at all.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I discovered Tommy Toehold and that I deserve 15%. I'm not saying that bullshit at all, but.
You're on the bandwagon way before anyone.
I was on the bandwagon way before Tommy was pulling in the numbers he is now. I thought he was funny then.
You were Turtle from Entourage way before anybody else was.
Oh yeah. I actually have never watched Entourage, but I've seen enough parodies that let me know I will never want to watch that show. So
it's actually really good.
Whatever. People keep saying that about a lot of shows, and I think they're all crazy.
There are a lot of good shows these days.
There, I will agree with that, David. I think there are quite a few. When people say that there's nothing on TV right now, I think you're full of shit. There's a lot on TV right now, and there's something for everybody out there. I think we have a nice balance of reality TV with scripted television. Remember, there was a point like 4 or 5 years ago where it was literally nothing but reality TV shows, and I think now that they've kind of balanced it out. I mean, there are people out there who love that shit, and there's plenty of it out there for you to watch, but if that's not what your thing, which is typically not my thing, there's plenty of scripted television out there to fill your time. Hulu is awesome. Hulu Plus is even better if you can afford the $8 a month for Hulu Plus. It's well worth it.
Breaking Bad back in 2 weeks.
I have to catch it. It's on Netflix. I gotta watch it. I just haven't quite got
All
on
hail
it.
the king.
I've tried a couple of shows on Netflix. Haven't been able to get into them, but I did get into Eureka. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten into that. I do I was a huge Buffy fan, so I like anything that's kind of that you know. Buffy was more supernatural, but Eureka is sci-fi, but it's kind of goofy. Very episodic adventures. I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. So Eureka's a pretty good show too. And that's
Game of Thrones. That show on TV.
What is it?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. I don't have HBO, and I
can't take the milieu in that one. Sorry. It's that medieval fucking.
Well, because
goddamn King Arthur bullshit.
I was
Harry Potter nonsense.
Harry Potter.
Fuck that shit. I know it's good. I it's just not for me.
Harry Potter does it, and he's your favorite author. So I really like Spartacus is probably one of my favorite super bloody gory shows, but it goes on these huge hiatuses. Whatever. It goes on breaks, and I was like, what do I watch in the interim? And everybody's like Game of Thrones, but I don't have any I don't have HBO, so I can't watch it yet. So I will watch Game of Thrones, but they did announce the final season of Spartacus, which makes me sad because we all know how that ends. But should be a really good one on Stars. Yay, Spartacus. Okay, totally off topic here. I told you there's not really a whole lot of MMA stuff to talk about. Let's just for real quick. I just wanted to bring it up. We don't have to have a real conversation about it, but if you're on YouTube, you're on the interwebs, check out Here Comes the Boom. It's the preview trailer for it, starring Kevin. Why am I forgetting his name?
Kevin James.
Kevin James. Yes.
It looks like crap.
It looks awesome. Do not listen to Justin. That movie looks awesome. Looks like awesome sauce. Who's in it that's hot? There's somebody who's hot in there. Who's the hot
Salma
chick?
Hayek.
Yes. I mean, come on now. It's Salma Hayek. She could be in a movie where she's just reading from the New Mexico phone book, and I would watch that shit. No? I mean,
I want to see her in that Savages movie, but
I'm actually looking forward to seeing this movie. It's an interesting. It's very much it's your typical kind of Kevin James movie. I think he's got probably a better budget behind it. He's lost a lot of weight in it, where he plays. He's a teacher, and something's going to happen to his school, and so he decides to start competing in mixed martial arts to earn money. Of course, there's a lot of guest appearances from fighters, including Jason Mayhem Miller. But what I thought was interesting, Dana White talks about it, and that it's the first movie the UFC's actually given permission for them to use the UFC in the movie. So,
but not the first television show.
The first television show?
Yeah, not the first television show. Not the first ever. You don't know the TV show? You do not know what I'm referring to.
I didn't say TV show. I said movie.
I know. I was just distinguishing. You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
No. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Friends. Tank Abbott. Friends.
Friends.
Friends had an episode.
Oh, Friends.
UFC.
Friends was that show with all those white people, right?
Yes, it indeed was. And they had an episode once where Monica's boyfriend, a white person, decided that he wanted to become an Ultimate Fighter.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he ended up fighting Tank Abbott and getting beat really quickly fighting Tank Abbott, a white fighter. But actually, Tank Abbott was one of the more popular UFC fighters at the time. That was like mid-90s, late 90s at most.
And I don't want people to get this twisted. I am not racist against white people. I pretty much hate everybody.
Oh, not at all. That was a whitewash show.
It was
a show that involved 6 friends that never dated any black people and apparently never had any black friends in New York City.
Ross did date Aisha Tyler for I believe it was 2 episodes.
Or any long-term relationships or any long-term friendships.
No,
it was a very white show.
Aisha Tyler
as a host on TV, really, in movies. People don't really think about it.
So they're the people that are in the movie. Selma Hayek, of course, Kevin James. Joe Rogan is playing Joe Rogan in the
Boss
movie.
Rutan, I saw that.
Boss Rutan is in it. Who else is in this movie? I know that there's a bunch of guest appearances from fighters. They probably won't list them on the regular IMDb.
It looked like they were showing highlights of Krzysztof Szynski's fight. I don't know if he's in the movie.
Bruce Buffer is in the movie. Mike Goldberg is in the movie. So they actually got some real UFC people in here, and the fact that the UFC is actually allowing them to use their name in the movie, I think is fairly significant. How good the movie will be? It might be absolute crap, but you know what? I'm still gonna watch it. Justin's gonna be over there judging me and shit, but I'm still gonna watch the movie.
He's very judgmental.
Such a judgmental asshole. Stop being such an asshole, Kohi. Tell TJ to go home. Justin, did you put us on mute again?
Did we mute us again?
He totally muted us again.
He muted himself.
Rude. He is so rude. Justin.
What the fuck, Justin? Unmute your computer.
Oh, we lost him. We lost Justin at some point.
Oh, he's gone.
Whatever.
It was nice of him to say bye.
Yeah, asshole.
Jesus, I know, really.
God.
What the fuck, Justin? TJ being rude, hanging out. Even he said he'd have to cut out early. I thought he'd at least
say something before he had to cut out early.
Instead
of fuck you guys, I'm getting off the phone. He could have at least said that. He could have at least said that. I mean, we don't really have a whole lot else to talk about anyway. So it's no real loss. UFC is cracking down on what I think is kind of strange. Zombie Prophet is he is a member of Iron Forge's Iron.com. He's really big in the MMA community, known for being really quick on creating animated GIFs of highlights of fights. And the UFC apparently sent him a nice little letter that said, stop doing that shit, son.
Fuck them. I mean, they have no right to do that.
Well, and if you did not listen to the Untethered MMA podcast, they talked about this yesterday on the show. I thought they brought up some really great points, and one of them was it feels almost counterintuitive. These clips are a way of spreading the UFC's name, of showing people these fights in a really fast and efficient way.
And spreading the word and helping promote their
brand.
Beyond the fact that they have no right to tell them not to do the gifts are fair use, like clearly fair use. A few seconds of a fight like that.
Oh really?
Like UFC has no copyright over a few seconds of a gift. That's clearly under fair use, and the only reason that these guys would back down is because they can't afford to fight them in court. But really, I'd seek sanctions against them because it's frivolous.
Wow.
That they have no possible claim that they can't use these gifts. No legit claim, I should say.
I just think that's ridiculous that they would. I mean,
it's bullying. It's bullying, and they know these other guys can't. They can't afford to fight them.
We talk about the UFC quite a bit on this show. I mean, they are the biggest promotion. They have the most fight cards going on. I love the UFC. I love the fact that they have some of the best fighters in the world underneath one banner. We get to see most of the time we get to see the fights that we want to see, and the implication that the UFC is a bully to the media seems to be becoming more and more apparent. I mean, that used to be like a hardcore fan secret. But I feel like it's leaking out, and even the casuals are going to, if they haven't already, start to notice that the UFC, Dana White especially, can be very very bullyish and very controlling.
And like you said here, it's counterproductive completely because the gifts. I mean, if you see a knockout on a GIF, if anything, that's going to encourage you to perhaps buy the replay of the show. It's not gonna. No one's gonna see a GIF and then decide not to buy a show.
Like, man, this is garbage. Why the hell would I want to see this shit? And it's not like anybody is making
spread the word, like you said.
Yeah, I don't understand their stance on this. I don't understand why they are they are kind of ostracizing the very group that made them what they are, and that is the internet. Really, is what helped push the UFC. Back into or push the UFC into a position of supremacy over other MMA organizations. I mean, you can't argue that the internet did not help do that, and now that they seem to be lashing out at them. So I don't understand it. And in general, I remember last year when we talked about the UFC on Fox deal and how big of a change we were going to see in 2012. This was not the change that I expected to see. This was not.
This was not what we were hoping to see.
No, we were hoping to see more things on Fox and effects. Obviously, they want to push people to Fuel TV. I understand that. I don't mind the preliminary fights being on there. I'm not a huge fan of the Fuel cards. I'm not a huge fan of the Fuel cards, period, because they're in general just really garbage cards. They're not. There's no real significant fights on the cards. It seems like a waste of space when they could be, really packing some cards with some really great fights. They're spreading themselves too thin now between FX, Fuel, and Fox, and the pay-per-views. Although it seems, David, and tell me if I'm crazy or not, but I felt like I noticed a small change. Because at one point we were having... It was possible for us to have 2 pay-per-views in 1 month, because we've talked about that. But it seems like they have kind of shied away from that.
There are 2 this month. Or I should say July.
There's 148.
And then 149 is 2 weeks later. So.
And then 149. No, you're right. I thought they were shying away from it. August has 1.
August might only have 1.
August has 1 pay-per-view.
I think you're right. It seemed like we were getting 2 a month pretty consistently.
No.
It's not as often.
I mean, I'm looking. August only has 1, but September has. September 1st is UFC 151, and September 22nd is UFC 152.
Right. So it's whatever. So they want to still oversaturate the market.
They are, and they absolutely are.
Make people choose and pick and choose shows, promote piracy, because look, if there were 1 show a month, I might be happy paying for it. If you're going to have 2 shows a month, I might pick and choose and pirate the other one. And then if I start pirating the other one, I might decide that I'll just pirate them all at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think Terrence from Southeast is just tweeting me, and I think this is... it kind of goes without saying, but it needs to be stated. The UFC really does, at this point, think it's bigger than what it really is. They really do. They have their big boy pants on, and they think they're grown up. They think they're
if they think they're gonna if Dana White seriously believes he'll ever be as big as soccer, then they're delusional to begin with, because it'll never be as big as soccer worldwide.
Terrence is saying,
America, but soccer worldwide, no, it's just not.
Terrence is saying that he thinks the Fox deal is too much for the UFC to handle. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that the problem that we have here is Fox was expecting one thing, the UFC promised one thing, and it didn't happen. The fights that were on the first one and the second one, although they delivered in numbers, they did not deliver in action. The third one, they kind of punished the UFC for, with no promotion behind it. But we'll see once this football season starts back up. I think we'll start seeing more advertisements for it, because they seem very comfortable having the ads for it during that. I don't know why we didn't see it much during any of the other sporting events this season. Baseball or what else was going on? Basketball. I don't know if Fox has basketball on their station.
Maybe I think football fans are more predisposed to be violent.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And that's a problem, though, considering the UFC does not have a season. How do you reconcile that? Okay, we have a unknown call. Who we talk to right now?
It's MMA on the Reg.
What's going on, MMA on the Reg?
What's up?
How's it going? You guys are definitely hitting on a real good point about the UFC being delusional as to how great they are. And I'm talking solely in a business sense here. They obviously are the best promotion. They've done a great job as far as getting it from where it was before it was Zuffa owned to where it is now. But as far as just straight looking at it as from a business perspective, and the stuff that I'm referencing is from MMApayout.com. It was the S&P new credit rating analysis or whatever. So the UFC or Zuffa, they have a BB credit rating, all right, which basically makes them a junk bond. So honestly, that is the most humiliating
credit rating that I've ever heard for a business that, like, I respect. And it means that they have short-term cash, but there's long-term issues that go beyond just, you know, regulation and that sort of stuff.
Right.
The one thing they point out is the reckless spending and cashing out of money that ownership does. So right now, they approximately have, I think it's like $525 million bond that they have to pay out that's due 2015. So that usually gets paid out at like 1% principal per month plus whatever the interest is, which they'll be killed on. I mean, they're paying $5+ million a month just on that bond or whatever, and they've spent that money. And at the same time, right now, they only have in the business under $1 million cash sitting there. So they have like a $50 million credit line, but in all of UFC, in their bank accounts, they have under $1 million, and they have a loan outstanding that they have to pay off of over $500 million, and a terrible credit rating, like one that you just couldn't get anybody but just somebody that wants real, you know, real high interest rates. You know, it's just insane. So people look at this for like really from just almost like an ignorant position. Oh my God, Dana White's great. You know, he puts on a good show. He says bro and fuck and that sort of stuff. But like the reality of the situation is that like intelligent people looking at it from just a straight business perspective see this company as an embarrassing risk. And the crazy thing is that this loan that they got is from Mark Cuban, who I've never really been a big fan of, but that's the smartest thing in the world because so he lends them money, gets a high interest rate, gets to see their books, the UFC, and worst case scenario, if they default, they have to give him the UFC. You know? So, like, there's businessmen like him that are taking advantage of the UFC and literally playing the hell out of them. And then, literally, it's public knowledge that their credit rating is horrible. They have no cash on hand for the size company they are, and people are kissing their ass.
I mean, I've heard their credit rating isn't great, but I didn't hear it was horrible.
To say that they'd be big as soccer. To be big as soccer, they're never going to be as big as the Yankees. You know what I'm saying? Like, literally, the Yankees' payroll is like $200 million a year, and they make $400 million. You know, like
no, that's true. They'll never be as big as a Yankees team, or like in DC, they'll never be as big as the Redskins or the Nationals.
Right. So I mean, I just you know, I wish because I'm a fan of them and a fan of the sport that they would say things out like that didn't lead the people that just intellectual people in any way, shape, or form to think that they're totally out of their mind because it just takes away from everything. That you want the trust factor because people do think that fights, whether it be boxing or whatever, could be fixed. So they do think there's that connection to WWE and that sort of stuff.
So, you know, only if you think that they really believe this stuff or they're just saying it for public consumption.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow or another they phase Dana White out, like, over the next 2 years somehow. He says it's because of that ear disorder or whatever. But, like, they can't keep going on like this. Like, from a business standpoint, like, they could be in some big trouble if the numbers keep going down, you know?
You know, they're still profitable. I don't think that's going to change.
They'll have the balloon payment at the end of the loan. So, I mean, they're going to be paying it out, like, I guess, over 5 years. That's usually 5 or 7 years, or usually, I think, something like that would be paid out over. So you have 1% of the loan a month till the end, and then you have that big balloon payment. You know, so, like, that's going to be, you know, could be upwards of $50 to $100 million.
Right.
You know, so like there's things like that. There's just issues that I just can't understand how a company could be doing such like they're really reckless. You know, for such a great.
I don't think we could predict where they're going to be like 5 years from now into this.
No, absolutely not.
Even a year or two from now, it's really hard to tell, and it could be disastrous if some of these trends continue, or you know maybe things will turn around. I think our first signs from the Fox contract are not good at all.
Yeah, no, I think that they're really, really not good. And
because if Fox is a failure or seen as a failure, then they're going to have to rely on pay-per-view for at least the foreseeable future. And you know, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point also, and these are the points that I think that a lot of there's a lot of fans out there that are starting to understand that, literally, like, that deal has an impact on how everything's going to be for the fans, because we want to see the best fights and we want to see the things happen that are good for the sport. And it's almost disappointing when they pack some cards and then they let other ones be like lackluster, it's just, I think that as confusing it is for good fans, it might even be more confusing for new fans.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Now, do you agree that with the oversaturation that they are putting on way too many cards, way too many mediocre cards? I think is a good way.
I think so, but I don't have the numbers to like prove it either way. So my gut feeling is that they are so oversaturated, I just can't even believe it. But I mean, maybe there's something about a TV or pay-per-view that I don't know about. But yeah, I would say so.
So
looking at the numbers, it's hard to conclude anything else. Just over the last.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So Terrence from Southeast makes a statement, and he says that he thinks that the Fox deal has the UFC adding too many TV events without big fights. Spike TV was better suited for the UFC. I disagree with that last statement. I do not believe that Spike Television was. Spike Television may have seemed like a better place for the UFC because it was one station and they weren't having to spread themselves out so much, but there was no growth going to happen on Spike Television.
Not like being on network television.
No, absolutely not. Spike
like
Television.
The potential you have to be on network television.
Spike Television has such a niche market, and it's not just like white males. It's like white males with this type of mentality who want to see a show about how big a woman's breasts have to be to crush a can.
I love those shows.
Oh my God, I know you do. That's absolutely horrible. Those are awful shows.
Big shows.
That Spike Television only.
The Man Show.
Oh Jesus! Spike Television really perpetuated a lot of the stereotypes people had about the UFC and their fans. And it was smart for them to move from Spike Television. I still think it was a smart idea to move from Spike TV. It just seems like the details of this Fox deal are just not... They have so many kinks to work out before they actually get it to a point where it becomes a profitable decision for both of them. And it's a 7-year deal, so they have time to do that. This is only the first year. But they do need to make some changes, and one of those needs to be maybe not having fuel cards. Maybe they need to just do like replays on fuel, but not do actual like live events on fuel, because it just seems maybe they can go back to doing live events on fuel, but it doesn't seem like it's a smart move for them to make financially right now with 4 people watching the live events. So
I think that one thing that is overlooked, and it really has nothing to do in the short term, but that all the replays that are on all the different Fox channels are going to help bring fans in the long run. And the reason I say that is I can remember getting more and more into mixed martial arts, seeing WEC replays on whatever the hell cable channel they were played on. But the fact is I saw these same matches over and over again, and just being able to see whoever was fighting back then, whether Chael Sonnen or Aldo or Cerrone or whoever, those fights, and just having those replays and being able to kind of understand what was going on really propelled me into being a better fan. And I think that there's going to be a lot of that with people that are newbies that are watching these fights, but you won't see that payoff for many years. But yeah. I think that there's going to be some real benefit to that, because they are showing good fights that maybe anybody that's really seen them before won't want to watch, but that a new person might get a kick out of seeing it 3, 4, 5 times.
And Terrence comes back with, has the UFC grown more from being on Fox compared to Spike TV? I think we have to say yes. At least when you talk about the Fox shows themselves, even though the last Fox show did not draw the numbers that they were hoping for, it still drew twice as much as any show's ever drawn on Spike. And you have to count that as being real growth. That shows, at the very minimum, real potential for lasting growth. In Spike Television, if you looked at the numbers had totally plateaued. I mean, the numbers were 1.5 to like 1.8 all the time, and that's not what you want as an organization that's depending on people to watch your shows. You don't want it to plateau. You don't want that to be the standard number. You want to actually grow. And yes, this Fox deal is kind of, like we said, kind of teetering between a lot of things right now, but it has the potential to be a huge growth maker for the UFC. Probably not for Fox per se, but definitely for the UFC. It just, again, the details need to be worked out so much better. They're just not, they're not putting it together right. They kind of threw everything in a bucket and said, here's your fried chicken. And I was like, look, dude, I asked for baked chicken. And they just haven't figured that out yet. And I want it spicy with a side of mashed potatoes. But it's just not, it's not what we expected. I think as fans, is that fair to say? As fans, this was not what we expected. From them, and I think the UFC knows that. I think the UFC they've always been very sensitive to how the fans feel, and they definitely know that that's not what we're looking for, and I expect to see change in the coming years with this Fox deal. All right, I think it's about time for us to go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for calling in, MMA on the Reg.
Thank you.
No problem. So before I leave, I just wanted to tell Dave that I saw that he was up on Twitter, and I wanted to congratulate him for finally making that step.
I'm not, though.
Okay, so that was it.
Oh, David. Oh. Oh, David. You kind of are on Twitter, even though you're not on Twitter.
Have you got me on Twitter?
Yeah, you have a Twitter.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I cannot believe they actually did it.
Yeah. Actually, it wasn't us. It was a listener who decided to.
Just a listener.
Yeah, decided.
You know which listener did this?
That I don't know. That I don't know, but I do know. Well, at least as far as I know, none of us.
Are there posts being made as me?
Every once in a while, yes. Yes, there are.
Are they actually copying what I'm saying on Facebook, or is this just not me? And I actually have someone.
It's some of the things that you've said on the show that they've been posting on there. It's actually pretty funny. In the picture is an animated GIF of somebody blowing out pot smoke.
Oh my God!
So it's pretty awesome. Look at that, David. You have a whole cult following just by yourself. I think that's awesome. All right, guys. Anything else, David, that you wanted to bring up before we close up shop?
Oh, I'm just in shock right now. I can't believe that I have a Twitter account.
Yes, you do, and
it's active,
and you love it. Just in case you didn't know that, you love it.
That's too funny.
All right,
that's funny.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for us today. The hell if I know what happened to Justin Cohee, but you can say he's on Twitter at Justin Cohee FFR. David Wolf is on Twitter as well. I think it's Sour D Wolf is your Twitter handle, and I am FightFan_Erica on Twitter. Our show is at FanAddicts MMA. We are on Facebook. We are a Fight Fans Radio show, so Facebook.com/Fight Fans Radio. Don't forget to sign up for Fenichel's Fantasy Fight League. I will be tweeting the link to that after the show is over. They, like I said, have partnered with us, and we will be doing some contests with their prizes are amazing. I think Justin Cohee, I think we're volunteering him to kind of go in there and compete against some of you guys, since he seems to be a fairly good person at picking fights. I mean, at least better than me. And you can also follow them on Twitter. It's at FF Fight League is their Twitter handle, and their website is I believe it's FenichelFightLeague.com. But again, I will be tweeting that after the show is over. Big props to them. Thank you so much. And we are really looking forward to this. So expect a brand new little twist on our prediction show next week. And I'll be giving away one entry to the Fenichel Fantasy Fight League on Twitter. I don't know. I'll probably tweet some trivia question, or I don't know. If you just tweet me and say, "Hey, I want to be in it," then I'll hook you up. But you can either tweet me at FightFan_Erica, or just at FightFansRadio, or at FanAddicts MMA. We're on iTunes. We're on YouTube. We're on Stitcher Radio. We soon will be live on Stitcher Radio. Apparently, I have some crazy plan for us having this 24-hour MMA radio station. I don't know what's going on here, but we'll see how things kind of come out. We have a lot of really awesome things in the works, and so stay tuned, and you'll be the first to know. All right, everybody. We will talk to you next Friday, 5 p.m. on Fight Fans Radio. We are the Fanatics MMA Show. Peace.